Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Saturday morning and it is time for Multifamily Unplugged. I hope you are having a great day. Listen, I know it's early. You're probably just getting up, maybe like me, just getting back from the gym. But why don't you go put a cup of coffee in somebody's hand, wake them up, get them here because we are in for a big show this morning. I'm excited to be joined by my good friend Jim Biggs from the GOB Network, and we're going to really dive into some multifamily, some raising private capital and the GOB network and some upcoming events that we have. So this show this morning is brought to you by the GOB network. I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to be part of that and with some really great individuals, not just Jim, but some other people who are really valuable to that network. So we'll get into a little bit of that. I'd like to remind you and ask you, please go and wherever you follow me on social media that you would, like my content, comment on it, share it, subscribe to my YouTube channel. We're always bringing relevant, right down to the money content. It's just like this morning, I did a post that showed the stock market yesterday when it closed and the arrows all point down again. Here's what I want to ask people. How much longer do you want to continue to be in that mundane return situation when you can be in the multifamily space? These alternative investments give you opportunity to grow your portfolio and do things that you necessarily can't do. And remember, I always talk to you about creating short-term cash flow where we're going to have long-term wealth. So watch for some of the events coming up this year through, Mike Morawski is going to do the global or the multifamily summit in October. That'll be a virtual event, 3 days of high performing speakers, multifamily. We're going to talk about the securities business. We'll have a great securities attorney on. We're going to have somebody on talking about self-directed IRAs, a couple of lenders, some people talking about property management. So you're going to get your fill over 3 days. We'll have an agenda coming out for that in the next month or so. So make sure that you watch for that because that's always a great event in October. So I just want to welcome everybody here this morning. As I said, go wake somebody up, ping somebody, let them know that we're going to go live. If you have comments, put them in the chat box or in the comment box. And we're going to bring Jim in right now and kick this show off. Morning, Jim. What's up, buddy?
Good morning, Michael. How are you this morning?
I'm great. How are you?
I am peachy keen as always.
Yeah, good. Good to see you. That's for sure. Hey, let me ask, are you in Chicago today?
Yes, I am. I'm in the, what we would call Chicagoland for everyone who's listening locally, but the far western suburbs of Chicago.
Okay, excellent. Good. So, Jim, one thing I always ask my guests as we kick this show off, and I like to know because I think this really goes to tell the tale of who somebody is. But in one word, what best describes you personally and professionally?
I would say go-giver.
A go-giver. Wow. That's awesome. And, dive into that a little bit, Jim. What makes you a go-giver?
I think probably my background coming from where I came from, knowing that I would not be where I am today were it not for people that gave me a hand up, people that cared enough about me to try to inspire me to be more than what I was born into, to be more than who I was at that moment of my life when they came into my life.
Nice. It's always about giving back, right? Did you read that book, Go Giver?
I did. And as a matter of fact, Mr. Burke is going to be on our virtual platform for the conference this year.
Wow, nice. That's awesome. I find it, he did a really good job with that book. That's one of those books that I have on my Audible, and I try to read a book a month and listen to a couple others. And there's been some that I just go back over and over again. And that's one of those, because it's just that little parable really kind of gets you to be looking at life, looking at things a little bit differently. So,
yeah, totally agree with that.
Yeah, thanks. And I really appreciate you being here this morning. You know, you and I have some history, and we've been around this business for quite some time. And not to date us at all, but you know, we definitely have seen markets. We've seen turns, upturns, downturns, good times, bad times, and you know, I think that there's a lot that people can learn. So I hope we're going to dive into some good content today. With that said, why don't you talk about your background a little bit? Tell people, you know, how you got into this real estate space and the multifamily space, and let's start there.
Well, I'm a poor hillbilly kid, raised in orphanages and foster homes from Tennessee. And I guess in a short sentence, that's who I am. I'm still that little kid, poor little kid, being bounced around, feeling like no one really wants you, building walls to protect yourself, being very cold. And it took a great woman like my wife to finally start to break those walls down for me. And that influences a lot of not only who I am, but who I was. Because when you grow up with no mentors to guide you, with no examples of what it means to go to college, no examples of what it means to run a business, no examples of what it means to be anything other than poor, you know, it's very hard to break free from those, as we might say, those chains that bind you. And so that's the beginnings of where I came from. And as I said, I had people in my life that influenced me. My best mentors, I didn't realize they were mentors. I just thought they were great friends of mine and people that cared about me. And without realizing, didn't even know what the word mentor was. But I had a couple of coaches in high school that mentored me. And then I had some friends as I left high school that mentored me. And very early on, one of the very first books I ever read was The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. And oldie but goodie, very easy book to read, very quick. And thank goodness they gave me that one. If they would have given me Rich Dad Poor Dad, I would have never gotten through it. I wouldn't have understood anything he was saying.
Yeah. Interesting. You know, there's been a lot of good books along the way. You know, that's another one of those. That's another one of those that is just a classic, right? And yeah. There's been a number of them along the way. So we could probably, you and I could probably talk about books we've read for hours.
Oh, absolutely. Right? Absolutely. You know, there's so many great ones out there. But I love Og Mandino. I love The Greatest Salesman in the World. I love, what was the great, I don't remember the name of the one in Babylon now, but
Richest Man in Babylon.
Richest Man in Babylon. Yeah, just so many great books to change your mindset.
Yeah. Somebody told me about a book. You might have read this one. Somebody told me about a book yesterday. One of my coaching clients said, The Little Red Sales Book.
I've heard of that. I don't think I've read it, but I think it's in my library. One of my favorite things in life, one of my favorite things in my home is my library. I collect books, and there's thousands of them in my library that I have not read. And I think that might be there. So I might have to dig through and try to find it, because I don't think I've read it.
You haven't read it?
I don't think so.
How come? I mean, here's what I'm asking. Here's what I'm asking. You said that you have books in your library you haven't read yet. That's what I meant. That's what I meant by that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those books. One of the, any book that I think I might be interested in someday, I've got this thought in my head that there's going to be a time where my days are spent in an easy chair reading books, or on my rocking chair on the porch reading books. I'm definitely nowhere near that point in my life yet, but I've always had that idea, that vision kind of in my head.
Yeah, that's got to be another 30 years away, right?
At least.
Yeah, right.
At least.
So how did you, talk about your first step into the multifamily world? How'd you get there? What did that look like?
Yeah. The one thing that I've always known was, and I still tell people today, Mike, you've heard me say it many times, I want to be a real estate investor when I grow up. And I've been saying that for 40 years. But unfortunately, I did not, um, I wasn't introspective enough. I have a hard time being introspective and to realize how important that was in my life. And I say that because I've been an entrepreneur for most of my life. A large part of my life, I've owned businesses. I've owned several new car franchises. But every time I had a business wind up and it was time to move on to something else, I would go running back to real estate. So the very first time I was in my early 20s and I got a real estate license because I thought, okay, if you want to be a real estate investor, you need to go to a professional organization. And little did I know at that time that most residential real estate agents are salespeople, and they're not investors, the vast majority of them. So it didn't take me long to figure that out. And then I started pursuing coaching programs of people that were already doing what I wanted to do. And so I've been a student of a lot of coaching programs over 40 years because like I said, every time one of my businesses would wind up, I'd go running back to find a coach, a mentor to help me accelerate, because I felt like, okay, I'm 5 years behind. Now I'm 10 years behind now, and just kept repeating that process over and over. And so I've been investing along the way my entire life, but I didn't get into multifamily until after the crash.
Yeah.
And I got a lot more serious at that time. My last business, my last dealership, things did not go well. And my wife has always had this, neither one of us come from from well-to-do families. And when we first moved to Florida in the early 80s, we went down Miami Beach. And for anyone that's old enough to remember what Miami Beach, South Beach looked like in the early 80s, it was a homeless shelter. And it's hard to believe going there now, but it was, the only people there were homeless people and retired people that couldn't afford to be anywhere else. You could buy one of those swanky little hotels on the beach. You could buy one of those rooms with you, open your front door and your toes would be in the sand for $14,000. And that image has always stuck in my wife's head. And she's always been very afraid of that. She's always, there's been two, maybe three, but two for sure times in my life where she's asked me, sweetheart, is that going to be us? Or are we going to wind up being like those folks on Miami Beach? And if your wife asks you something like that, and you got a good marriage, which I've got a great marriage, man, it'll hit you like a ton of bricks. And so that's always one of my driving forces, is not to wind up like that. And I now I'm wondering, and you have to put a stop to me when I stop wondering, Mike. I'll just keep talking. I don't even remember what the question was now.
No, you did a good job. I just was asking you how we got into multifamily here, but so here's what I want to ask you now. You made a very I love the comment you made that you have a great marriage, and I just want to ask you, what makes it a great marriage? I always want to, I believe success leaves clues, right? That's one of the things I always talk about, and you're obviously successful at that. And what's made it a great marriage?
Yeah, I did a podcast with Derek Clifford and his wife. They do a couples podcast.
Yeah.
And I told them what I've told anyone who's ever asked me. I live by a credo of the 4 C's in regard to marriage, and I try to live it in regard to all my relationships. And I think one of those C's obviously is communication. If you stop talking and you clam up, you can never move forward. But I think the biggest one that people don't want to do. And the other thing about success is you don't have to be massively better at anything to be a success. You just need to be willing to suffer just a little bit and go one or two steps further than most people will go.
Yeah.
And one of those C's is compromise. And I think that it takes a very, very, very strong person to compromise, and especially when you're right, especially when you're certain of your stance. But you being right will kill a marriage,
Yeah.
and it can kill a business. You have to be willing, if the other person's belief, right or wrong, is strong enough that they're not willing to back away from it. If you want to save the relationship, you need to be strong enough to give in. And you can't give in all the time. There's things that in our life that we have to take a stance on. But really, seriously, Michael, most of the things in our life, we could compromise, you might not get everything that you want, but it's not about getting everything that you want. You just want to keep moving forward.
Yeah. Jim, those principles that you just talked about, and especially compromise, I think are great business principles too.
I do too.
And in the world that we're in, so I think that just goes to core value of who you are as an individual. And I appreciate that. And I think that's one of the reasons that, we have started down this road of building a friendship. And it is because we believe in those things, and that's what's important. So I appreciate you for that. So, hey,
yeah, and I've told you before, I absolutely love your business name and the mission and vision that you have for it, My Core Intentions, because we do have a lot of similar vision and mission statements in life, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something I talk about all the time, right? As the intentionality, we have to be intentional about what we're doing. So, with that said, what are you really intentional about right now?
Well, as you know, building the GOB network, it's a nonprofit that we started about a year and a half ago. And that really has consumed my retired life. I am officially supposed to be retired for the second time. But I don't, retirement just doesn't seem to take on me. And so I'm working harder than I ever have to try to help bring financial literacy and generational wealth and passive income to underserved communities and underserved individuals. And that really can mean just about anything. I mean, obviously, coming from where I come from, there's a certain type of person that I really, really love to help, but I want to help anyone that's willing to reach out and ask. If they've got the courage to ask for help, it could be, someone who grew up in a very wealthy family, but just doesn't fit, and feels like a failure in life. Anyone that's struggling in life that feels like they just are not getting out of life what they deserve or what they want. Those are the kind of people I love to serve.
Yeah. It's interesting, when people talk about nonprofits, they really there's that deep desire, that deep core, and it generally can come from your roots. And, it sounds like that history on South Beach, and, just wondering about that is where we're giving back. And, the thing about the literacy, I think that there's so many people around us that don't understand. They lack some education. Jim, we know my history, right? And I was away for a few years, and while I was away, it was amazing to me how some of these men have gotten through life, not being able to read, and in some cases not being able to write. And it just, it's like, really, how does this happen? This is America, right?
Yeah.
One of the richest nation in the world. And we have these things that go on. So I think that your mission and what you're trying to do, and we only do this stuff one person at a time, right? It's just, we can only help one person at a time. And this is kind of a funny thing, and you might want to comment on this, but years and years I've spent listening to motivational speeches and leaders and trainers. We talked about coaching a little bit. You know, I still have two coaches in my life today, after 20 years, right? Because they help grow my business. I think everybody needs to have a coach in their life. If you don't have a coach in your life, you're not growing, because we all have to grow personally and to grow professionally. So, I say this because I want to help people, and I want to give back, and I want to make more, and make people's lives a little bit better. And how do we do that? But one person at a time. So the point I was going to make was, for years I heard we're not in the business of uplifting the downtrodden, but I don't believe that anymore today, because I think in some form, fashion, capacity that we need to do that. We need to give back a little bit. So I don't know if you have anything to comment on that or not.
Yeah, I would like to comment on that. That is, I've heard the same saying many, many times from people that are in the business of mentoring and coaching. And it's a big business, and there's a lot of money being made in that business. And there's good coaches and good mentors, and there's bad ones. And I think that message, while I don't have any opinion about the message as far as is it a good message or a bad message. It can absolutely be a good message. If that's not the people you're trying to serve, then absolutely it's a good message for your people. Look, I'm trying to serve only high net worth individuals to build 10-figure businesses in this industry. Whatever that mission is, then that fits.
Yeah.
That just doesn't happen to be my mission. It's not what I want out of life. There's things, they say that 80% of people are unhappy in their jobs. Well, if I was trying to coach and mentor just to make money off of the coaching and mentoring, and being one of those people that just chases the dollar, I would be extremely unhappy. Yeah. That's not what's in my heart. I grew up in a very religious surroundings, if you will. I grew up in the South. I grew up in the Bible Belt. Mm-hmm. And it amazes me, the Bible doesn't say anything about, that you can't be rich, but it does have lots of parables about succumbing to the what is the word I'm looking for, Michael? The things that rich people have that can, that are not necessarily great, but it doesn't say that you can't be a good rich man. Mm-hmm. I think everyone has their failings. David was not a poor man.
Right.
And had his failings, but look at all the good that he did do. And what does the Bible say about helping the downtrodden? What does the Bible say about helping your fellow man? And, the golden rule should not be the one with the most gold makes the rules.
Yeah, right.
But that is, I think there's definitely two golden rules in our society.
Yeah. Well, Jesus did it, and Jesus lived with them and walked with them. And so, there, if that's your example and who you're following as a leader, then that's what we should do, right? So hey, Jim, so let's talk about multifamily, and what are you seeing today in the marketplace? What are you seeing today in the way the world is? What do the deals look like? How are you looking at deals today?
Yeah, I love talking to you about these things, because you and I have slightly different viewpoints on where to invest, how to invest. But the one thing we do agree on is that commercial multifamily is probably, on a risk-adjusted basis, about as good an investment as you can make. And whether it's in good times, bad times, whether the economy is going up or going down. The one thing I know is I am not the sharpest tool in the shed. I read a lot. I try to keep one of my foster moms she always used to tell me, Jim, you have two ears and one mouth. Listen twice as much as you speak. And right. So I try to pay attention, but there's no way I can time the market. There's no way I've never, look, when the crash happened, I was like 90% of everyone. I was so fearful, I pulled back. And I had the money to continue investing, and I could have bought a lot more properties, and I wish that I had, because hindsight is 2020. I would be in a much, much, much better place if I would have just kept investing. But I didn't. I pulled out of the market for probably a good 7 years that I didn't buy anything. And there's another story to that. One of the reasons was I was working, 100 hours a week and working 7 days a week, but and felt like there was no time. But even if I'd have had the time, I think I was too fearful.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is those were really rough times. That's the worst economic time in my 64 years. And they say the worst economic time since the Great Depression, that it's second only to the Great Depression. And the lesson you can learn looking back is you should have been in the market. You should have been buying. And guess when I did buy, Mike? 2008, I bought 2 properties right as the thing was about to crash. And I still own those 2 properties. And so even though I bought at the very top of the market, those 2 properties have done very well for me.
Yeah.
Their value still hasn't recovered. They're still worth less than I paid for them. They're really close to break even. But for all the years that I've owned them, they've cash flowed. So every month I can walk out to the end of the driveway and get a check.
Yeah.
So how bad can that be? My worst investment still cash flows every single month. So that tells me stay in the market. Don't be fearful. You have to have a long-term vision. Do I believe we're poised for a recession? No, I do not, because I believe we're already in a recession. And I think we just don't know it yet. I think when we look back, we'll realize that we've been in a recession at the beginning stages of this recession for probably 6 months.
We're headed that way, right? I mean, before, as I was going live and I was making my opening comments this morning, I talked about a post I put out there this morning, and I get this feed every day that comes through that just kind of shows me what the stock market closed at yesterday, or what it's going to open up at in the next opening day. And every arrow pointed down except the 10-year treasury. But typically that's been down also lately. I just want to make a quick comment here to all the people who are online this morning. I want to thank you for being here today. We continue to grow every week on this show, and I just, it's because of you listeners and the support from you. So I'm really glad that you're here this morning. And Cheryl, I know you put that comment out there about, is there going to be a replay? Yes, there will be a replay. And I'm going to suggest to everybody to go listen to this replay again later, because we've talked about some really interesting things and going to continue for a little bit here. And Crystal, thanks for being here. You're exactly right. Jim's comments were right on spot. So thank you. Anybody has comments, put them in the chat. So Jim, all these arrows point down. And the post I made was, hey, how much longer are you going to ride this wave down? And now might not be the time to sell out and get out, but where's your balance? One of the things that I talk about, and you may, what I like to talk to my private investors about is, listen, you're going to get this cash flow, and you're going to put a minimum investment into this alternative investment, and you're going to get a cash flow. The question now becomes, what do you do with your cash flow so you don't spend it? Because typically, if somebody's making 8% on a $25,000 investment and they're getting paid out quarterly, they're going to take $500 and say, it's only $500. I'm going to go take a long weekend or go buy some beer or, do something different, right? What I always suggest to people is balance that. Go open up an index fund against the S&P and put, take that quarterly distribution and put it in that index fund. Do something different that's going to grow that wealth for you. You touched on it. I've already touched on it, but it's about the short-term cash flow and the long-term wealth. And I love this because this goes back to your mission, right? How do we get people, how do we educate enough people through the literacy to understand that, to go do that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that is the what I'm sure you've heard this also, Michael. What's the longest journey you'll ever take in your life? It's the 6 inches from here to
Oh,
here.
yeah, right.
And learning to live below your means. There's two schools of thought. I don't want to have that mentality of not having. I want an abundance mentality. So I'm not making all this money so that I can't spend it. The problem is that most of us take that to an extreme, and we will spend every penny we make, and or even more than we make before we even make it.
Yeah.
And that's how you start to get in trouble and get underwater. I'm of the opposite philosophy. I've always been frugal. Thank goodness my wife is very frugal. And it's only because of that that I've been able to overcome a lot of mistakes that I've made financially in my life. And I'm still better off than 98% of the people in the country. I joke, if my life were a book, it would be The Millionaire Next Door, because
Uh,
up until a month ago, my regular everyday driving car was a 2000 Cadillac Escalade with a broken windshield and a big dent in the back end. And it gets me from A to B. This is coming from a man who's owned new car dealerships. I owned one of the very first Dodge Vipers that came off the assembly line. I've always driven, I always drove a brand new car. I never drove a car that was more than 3 or 4 months old.
yeah.
And, but to me, the one thing I love about what Kiyosaki teaches is it has to be an asset. That $500, look, I believe very strongly in real estate, but I don't care what you do with that $500 distribution as long as you put it into an asset, put it
Yeah.
into something that's going to return something to you. That's how you get ahead in this game, is always be investing in assets.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I think one of the things also that I always teach people is I say, take a personal financial statement, and you should look at that every 30 days.
Yeah.
And you should think about it every time you go to buy something. So if you sat down today, just go to Google. Google's everybody's best friend today. Google personal financial statement, pull one up and fill it out, assets, liabilities, look at both sides of that column, see what you have, what you don't have, and see how they match up with your core values, where you want to go, what you're trying to do in life. But more importantly, the next time you go to buy something, pull that out. Look at where it's going to fall on that asset sheet, on that balance sheet. If we start to live our life like that, not just our financial life, but our emotional and mental life like that also, and even our physical life, right? I think that you start to see things change along the way for yourself. And that's what this all has to be. I mean, Jim, you and I are a little, we got a couple of years on some people, and I think we've learned a lot along the way, and people, success leaves clues, right?
Yeah, the old adage that you earn the gray hairs is absolutely true.
Yeah, have a few of those, no doubt, my friend. So let's talk about the climate of the private investor today. I know that you are syndicate deals, you're in the market, you put money in deals. And what's the climate of the private investor out there today?
Well, first thought that comes to my head is if you're chasing private equity, um, you're in a different space than most real estate investors, because most real estate investors, they have to work their way up to that. But there's a lot of money sitting on the sidelines. I know a lot of the institutional players absolutely have been selling, but they've been selling um, for the last 5 to 7 years.
Mm,
And a lot of them are sitting on the sidelines, but just waiting and keeping a lot of powder dry. But there's a lot of them investing. There's especially value add. and anything that they feel that will either protect their money or grow their money, and they're taking some pretty big bets. There's still a lot of investment activity in these family offices and private equity, high net worth individuals and ultra high net worth individuals. And you hear that, you can read reports about it, and you always see two sides of every story.
Yeah.
But, I've had, just since NMHC, I've had probably 6 family offices reach out to me to kind of interview me to see if I would fit in their bucket. So it tells me there is money out there that they're looking to not miss out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. What's funny is I've done a couple of passive investing webinars here over the last 6 weeks. And both times I've had north of 50 people register for those events. And I can count on one hand the number of people that have been back for a second time. So I think there's a lot of hunger out there for people looking for that alternative and a way to offset inflation. We're in this inflationary period today where, I always say, look, interest rates are going up. A friend of mine owns a mortgage company, and here's what he said to me. He said, look, when was the last time, and here's how he says it, and I love Nick, he's a great friend of mine, but he says, he goes, Mike, when was the last time you saw interest rates go up 200 basis points and the Fed hasn't moved in 30 days? He goes, I think the banks are just getting ready for the onslaught. I have another friend who is has been one of the largest foreclosure attorneys in the country. He represents the bank, and his business at one point, he did hundreds of foreclosures for the banks on a monthly basis. His business is cut way back, and he said that he feels that by the end of August this year, that things are going to be pretty much back in that full cycle again. We're seeing broker price opinions, those BPOs, brokers are doing more of those today. We're seeing more foreclosure advertisements. The cost of gas, Jim, listen, I live in the city. I know you're in the suburbs, so we could compare this. $4.99, $5 at the gas station on the corner. A loaf of bread is more. I was in the grocery store this morning, and I'm like, really? You're kidding, right? So supply chain constraints, the cost of lumber, the cost of labor, everything's up. So how do you offset it? Personally, and you may have a different opinion, but I think a high rent growth product that's going to keep up with that inflationary position is going to help people preserve their capital.
Yeah, the good thing about a high inflation rate is that should be applying to your rents so that you're not losing ground. And
Right.
if inflation is running 4% and your underwriting model was at 3.222, then your underwriting model is wrong. So I'm not saying that you should be underwriting at 4% inflation rate or rent growth. What I'm saying is, if you've found a property that underwrites conservatively with no more than a 3% rent growth, and you're in the throes of operating the property and you're in an inflationary market, make sure that you're not just raising the rents to what your pro forma says. Make sure that you're, really studying the market and keeping up with market trends and know what your market rent is. If you're not doing, and if your property management is not, as an asset manager, you need to make sure that they are and check their work. That if you have an opportunity to raise that rent 4% or 5%, you have to do that or else you're losing ground.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. Let's just talk about rent growth for a minute. So I believe that there's some metrics around that. And as a multifamily investor, what you need to be looking at is, first, you need to look at that population growth. Then you need to look at that job growth, because that'll take care of the household income growth, which is going to allow you to go into a market and raise rents. And I think that when we look at it from that perspective, it helps us grow those businesses like we need to grow them. But I have a deal right now that is in Tampa, and we went in. Our conservative underwriting was, and Jim, I'm conservative, right? I'm gun shy and I'm conservative.
Most
So,
Midwesterners.
yeah. Well, my history, but I underwrote this deal. My partner and I underwrote this deal at, we could raise the rents at $150 a door for our 2-bedroom or for our 1-bedroom units, and we're raising them $250. And the 2 bedrooms we thought $250 a door, and we're raising them $350. It totally changed the IRR of the deal, and skyrockets the cash flow for people.
Yep. So
if you look at a sponsor that's conservative, because I think there's a lot of sponsors out there today, and there's I have a lot of friends that are sponsors and are putting deals out there, and some of the underwriting I can't condone, because I think it puts it in a place that's unrealistic for where the market is and where the market's headed, and you got to be cautious.
Yeah, I will. I'll play devil's advocate and pick the other side of the coin,
Okay.
Which is to say, it's great to be a conservative underwriter, but most people are so conservative they never win a deal. I know people that have underwritten 1,000 deals and never found one to pencil out, so they've never bought. And every deal that I've ever bought, I've said this over and over again, I felt like I overpaid for it.
Right.
In the moment, I felt like I overpaid for it. But in hindsight, there's not a single deal I've ever bought where I felt like, you know what, I did overpay for it, and I wished I would have never bought that. Every deal I've ever bought, some I've had to hold longer, than others in order to realize the profit gains and the business plan that we wanted to execute. But looking back, I wished I'd have bought more, and I wished I'd have never sold.
Yeah.
And so, if your business plan is a 2 or 3 year business plan, that's just a long fix and flip. That's all that is. But if you take a longer view, a 5-year view, or even a buy and hold view, it's better to buy, even when you feel. If the property, here's the one caveat: the property has to cash flow. But if that property will cash flow, and you can afford to buy it, and you have enough money to buy it, or you have enough investors that are willing to invest with you, you need to be in the game. You can't make money sitting on the sidelines with your money in the bank.
Right.
You have to buy.
Right. And there are deals out there, and some of the broker pricing, I think, is a little a little outside normalities, but I think that you're right. So there is 2 sides to the coin, and you got to look at it both ways. But hey, there was your friend Trevor who said you're a rock star, Jim. So
that's the international man of mystery, Trevor.
Yeah, right. Love Trevor. So hey, here we are. We're 45 minutes into this deal already this morning. Any thoughts that people should be looking at or thinking through?
Well, I would encourage everyone that if you haven't thought about what you're going to be doing July 13th and 14th, to take a trip to Chicago and visit with Michael and I. We're going to be having a conference here in Chicagoland, right outside O'Hare Airport. So it's very easy to get to and find us. And if you've never visited Chicago in the summertime, and never had an opportunity to jog or take a divvy bike along the lakefront, or visit some of our world-class museums, you are really missing out. Chicago is one of the best cities in the world, one of the most beautiful cities in the world, particularly in the summertime. And while we are going to be concentrating on networking and doing deals on the 13th and 14th, we're encouraging everyone to stay through the weekend with their family. And we're going to try to do some even more intricate networking and really getting to know people that we can partner with and potentially, help get deals put together and generate those relationships.
Sounds like a couple of really good networking events, opportunities coming up. I know there's, I love to network. I love to meet people, because we're in a relationship business, right? And it's all about relationships. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak at the event. Hey, here's what I want to know. Is there anything that you can offer people right now that would be maybe a early bird special to get tickets for the event?
Well, as a matter of fact, did we send you? We should have. If we didn't, Michael, did we give you if someone registers through a link that you have?
Yeah. So if somebody goes
to you guys, if you use Michael's link, which he can post in the chat, or you can find on. Well, I don't know where you have it, Michael, but you'll get a really nice discount by saying that you heard about us in the conference from Michael.
Yeah. So if you go to the GOB network, everybody, to buy your tickets, if you use my last name, Morawski, and that will give you a discounted ticket. So I encourage everybody to go, everybody to be there. I think, Jim, I think early expectations are 500-600 people at this event.
That's what I'm shooting for, is 600 people, Michael.
And here's what's really interesting, Jim. And I like this because nobody else is doing events in Chicago in this space, right? You go to Denver, you go to Miami, you go to Vegas, but nobody's doing anything in Chicago. And I love that we're doing this event here in Chicago. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to see some people from around the country that, we usually don't get a time. Clubhouse is a great thing, right? So I'm on Clubhouse twice a week. I have a couple of rooms, multifamily on Monday at 2:00 Central. And on Tuesday, we talk about raising private equity at 3:00 Central. And, I've met some really great people on Clubhouse. And it's funny, they'll come to town. They'll have a good friend of mine had a layover last week coming through O'Hare, and went and picked her up at O'Hare. We went and had breakfast. We got to meet each other for the first time. Lisa, who's made a couple comments here this morning, she's been in Chicago. I've got to meet with her and her husband. So, it's kind of cool how some of these apps have brought the world a little bit smaller, and we want to bring it even smaller. So we want people to come out to Chicago July 13th and 14th, stay through the weekend, get in conversations, get in relationship, build some partnerships. I think this is a great partnership. Chad is asking in the chat. He thinks we should go another 45 minutes, Jim. But I have a coaching client, so Chad, sorry.
Well, Chad can watch it twice, and that'll give him his full 90 minutes.
Yeah, you're right, Chad. July 13th and 14th, and looking forward to you being there too, Chad. I think it'll be a great networking event, and you'll get a lot out of it also, just by being at the event. So, Jim, what else? A couple other speakers that are speaking. You want to let some secrets out about the event?
Well, as everyone knows, I have been asking LinkedIn and my social media to help me get a connection to either Michelle or Barack Obama and Oprah, because they're local Chicago natives, to be one of our keynote speakers. And we're calling out Sean Conlon, poor Irish immigrant kid that has wound up on the top of the real estate heap here in Chicagoland, to also be a keynote. I spoke to Josh Dorkin this morning to ask him to be a keynote, and he's interested. I'm not going to say who's going to show up because they're all interested. We do have a couple of more people that would be really big names that people already know, and that are great motivational speakers. And so keep your eyes on gobnetwork.com and look at the conference tab to get more updates as we start to release the names of the people that are going to be speakers at the conference. But a lot of names in multifamily that everyone knows.
Yeah. Hey, we go live when we do this event on 3 platforms, Jim. So we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, and we're on YouTube. And what's interesting is we have a ton of listeners, people looking in today at us. So I'm grateful for that. And Crystal put a comment out. She said it's her first time tuning in, and she appreciates the helpful information. She hoped that she could catch us next time and be here also. So Crystal, thanks for being here. Big shout out to you. Love new people. Please tell people about this Saturday morning multifamily unplugged, because I always say, hey, this is raw, unscripted radio. So started this well over a year ago and been going strong ever since. Jim, let's wind this down. A couple of questions that I always like to ask my listeners, just kind of some fun stuff. So, and you might want to focus on Chicago for this, because being that the GOB event in July 13th and 14th is coming up. Jim, you know what? Let's do this real quick. Give me a link that I can put in the banner here that people can register at. That's just gobnetwork.com, right?
That's correct. And if they look at the top of the web page to the top middle left, there's the word conference. And if they click on that, they'll be able to register at the event. And don't forget to use Michael's last name, Orkowski. Michael, you might want to put that in the chat or spell it for everyone again. I know a simple hillbilly kid like me, spelling was not my forte. But yeah, go to the gobnetwork.com, find out more about it. And we're just, like you said, very, very excited to have people come and get to see Chicago and the Midwest. And there's great investing opportunities for cash flowing properties throughout the Midwest. And we're doing quite a few deals in the Midwest this year. So very excited about it.
Yep. Okay. So here's the first question. What is your favorite tourist attraction?
In Chicagoland, my favorite tourist attraction is probably Millennial Park, Navy Pier. Wow, there's so many great ones. The museum campus. Wow, that is hard. That is hard.
There is a lot of stuff in Chicago that are great. And if you haven't been here before, there's a lot to do. So, Jim, I just went to the conservatory a couple of weeks ago for the first time ever. And I've lived in Chicago my whole life. What a great place that is. So
yeah, beautiful place. The botanical gardens, our aquarium is world class. Our art museum is one of the best in the world. Just there's so much, and we haven't even mentioned. If there's millennials, they may not know what Sears Tower is, but we haven't even mentioned, that you can go to the top of Sears Tower and they have you can lean out like they do over the Grand Canyon in a glass enclosed thing to let you feel like you're flying like Superman, just lean out over the city, or go to the top of the Hancock Tower and have a drink in a rotating restaurant that the top floor of this skyscraper gives you a 365-degree view by turning around. There's so many neat things to do. Shopping, some of the best shopping in the world. Just great city to visit.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, you might have touched on this a little bit already, but let's say, what's your favorite book?
I don't have a favorite because I have so many favorites. I don't have very many favorites of anything, but we did touch on a few that I really do love. I will say to Michael that the greatest book ever written, the most inspirational book that you can read and take life lessons from, even if you're an atheist, is the Bible. The Bible, to me, I don't look at it as a religious text as much as I look at it as the greatest lesson plan on how to live a great life in business and personal. Go check that one out. If you haven't checked it out, they probably have a copy at the library.
Nice. And I want everybody to remember that on Thursday, this upcoming week, Jim is going to be back on Thursday morning live. We're gonna really drill into the GOB network a little bit more. Okay, Jim, last question. Favorite restaurant in the city of Chicago? And I have one too, but let's hear yours, because we got people coming to Chicago. Where are they going to go eat?
Well, again, so many great restaurants, and close to where we're going to be. There's, Harry Carey's, there's Ditka's, there's Gino's, there's Uno's, one of the first, national deep dish brands. But for me, I am a really simple person. I am not hard to please. Look, do I love a great steak from Chris Steakhouse? Yes, I do. Or Morton's? Absolutely. I'd love to have a nice filet mignon, and I do whenever someone else is paying. But I'm simple. There's a little restaurant called Nicoret's that has, I think, the best pancakes that have ever been made. It's not in the city. You've got to travel out west by me, but it's just a little hole in the wall, a little mom and pop.
Wow, awesome. I might have to go check that out. I haven't had pancakes in a while, so kind of making my mouth water a little bit. So, hey,
they're so light you have to put syrup on them to keep them on the plate.
Yeah. Hey, Dan, good morning. Good to see you last night too. Glad that you're here today. Last thing, my favorite restaurant, big shout out to Tefano's. I love pasta. It's a little neighborhood place. A dozen items to order from. I'm going there tonight, right on the blackboard. You don't even get a menu, and you don't have a QR code to deal with. So big shout out to them. That's a great little neighborhood place if you like Italian food. Jim, thanks for being here this morning. Tell people how they get a hold of you when they want to connect.
Again, the best way to connect with me is thegobnetwork.com. And not only me, but our mission and all the other people that are part of that network. It's a great place to go to find a sponsor. What we want to do is try to provide you with whatever you need to get a deal done. So whatever you're missing, if you need an underwriter, if you need a coach, if you need a mentor, if you need a balance sheet, we try to provide that for all of our members. And it is a member-only website. So if you want to join, you have to have a member sponsor you. So anyone that's listening to this that needs a sponsor, Michael can be your sponsor. Just use Michael as the person that you heard about us from, and you would be able to find your way in.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate you being here this morning. Hey, I'm going to move you to the green room for a minute. If you want to hang with me backstage for a minute, that'd be great. I'm going to end this thing and say goodbye to everybody. So,
thanks, Michael.
You bet. Hey, everybody. That was Saturday morning, Multifamily Unplugged. We're sponsored today by the GOB Network, a non-for-profit that helps people with literacy issues. And I just want you to know that this isn't all about creating wealth and multifamily, but this is about giving back. It's about building relationships for people and with people and helping each other grow. And I'm glad that everybody was here this morning. Remember the GOB Network coming up July 13th, 14th. The conference will be 2 days of some serious networking, relationship building. If you're in the multifamily space or thinking about going into the multifamily space, make sure you come out to the event. You'll learn a lot. You'll grow a lot. I'm looking forward to meeting some people that I haven't had an opportunity to shake hands with yet and meet. So I hope to see you there in July. Remember, we're here every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. So please tell somebody, pass the word on. If you know somebody who would be a great guest on this platform, somebody in the multifamily space or a business owner that supports the multifamily business, I'd love to interview them to have them on the show. So if you know someone, please let me know, and we'll talk about having them on. And if you're that person, definitely reach out to me. I would love to have that conversation. Hey, you can see behind me my book, Exit Plan. That's your complete guide to multifamily investing and why you need an exit plan before you buy. If you want to grab a copy of that, go to my website, go to mycoreintentions.com/free. Grab an e-version. If you're like me and you want to read a book, you can buy one there also, but you can grab a free book there. I have a couple other free ebooks out there, but go help yourself. If I can help you in your multifamily journey at all, help you get started or help you scale from where you're at, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll look forward to seeing everybody next week. I hope that you enjoy your weekend. in member to